Call the meeting to order at 7:02. Welcome, everyone. We are going to pass over a couple of items and go directly to the library. Beth is here, Beth Schreiber, who's the library director, and Roger Trahan, who is the chairman of the Library Board of Trustees. So there should be in your packet, and you guys at home, I guess you're muted. If you're muted, unmute if you did not get the packet or the information, because we sent out.
Do it now.
Oh, you didn't?
I can do it if they
No,
didn't
but
get it.
did you guys get the information about the library, the updated paper?
No.
I just saw that Colleen had emailed to ask for it, and I just forwarded it. But if I'm a panelist and I can screen share, I can certainly put it up if that would be helpful.
I think you are, and I think you can.
I think
That's what we
did.
We also discussed that, because I said you're a whiz bang on the computer, and if Beth needs to put something up, she can.
Beth, you sent a response? I still don't even have that.
Yeah, I forwarded it because I sent it on Tuesday. So I said, I'm sorry I don't have it, and I just sent a forward from my work email. Host has disabled participant screen sharing, so if you can enable screen sharing, I'll put it up, and I'll send you a new attachment. Colleen, one moment. I'm sorry. It didn't work.
Should we do roll call real quick since we are hybrid?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Good
have
call.
half.
This is partially virtual.
I don't have my little cheat sheet. I do have my cheat sheet.
I should probably.
Beth, you should be allowed to screen share now, by the way.
Concom one off the top of my head. I think
Thanks,
I really
Justin.
Got it memorized, Dave?
No, but
Gonna do roll
it
call.
seems to flow right
Paul
off.
Scarlett,
Here.
Ken Holberger is absent. Colleen,
Here.
and do you go by McIntyre?
That's my middle name technically. I just haven't updated my email address.
No, but on
It's been 11 years. I don't want to change my email just yet.
No, but on on the organizational paper, it just says Colleen. So I'm gonna correct that to say Roy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric Swenson. I don't see Eric.
Yep, I'm here.
There you are.
Yep, here.
Where are you? Hi. Oh, there you
There
are.
he is.
You were under the document.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has to be very forgiving tonight. We're lots of gremlins in our computers. Lisa Kelly.
Here.
Lisa's yes. Kristen. I just saw.
Yeah.
So she's disappeared.
Yeah.
It's like, this is interesting. Sandy.
You can't hear me?
No. It's like you disappeared. Like your whole picture went away.
I think for some reason it can only show 4,
We need to
So-
do
Yeah.
a presentation.
depending on who's talking.
Right. Yeah.
Sandy.
I'm here.
So
Justin.
just I skipped right over you. Oh, Ken, Colleen, Eric, Justin.
Here.
Then I did Lisa. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Hazard of taking off my glasses. Okay, roll call, and she has the updated, and I believe was page 18. I don't know if you can scroll to page 18.
Sure. So my initial change was just on page 18, I think, and then I realized that I had to update it on the cover sheet, which is not page 1, but page 5.
It's
Let me scroll.
like page 8.
No.
8.
Is it page 8?
Nine.
Page
There's-
8.
8 or 9?
8 or 9.
There.
Right. So I didn't make any changes to the narrative. I figured if you had new questions, I could answer new questions tonight, but I didn't want to take up your time and go through the whole presentation again. But there was a request to reflect the capital campaign's commitment of $20,000.
Okay.
So because we had that initial preliminary work that totaled around $13,000, I just added another $7,000 to that total and called it contingency to bring the project total to $238,228 for the entire project. That's not the funding request. The funding request from us to you is unchanged right here. So that's just highlighted in yellow. And that's reflected again on page 18 down here at the end. Hope no one gets motion sick. So under other, I added that extra $7,000 and just noted here that it would be for contingency. So 13,000 and 7,000 is the 20,000 from the capital campaign. It adjusted this total of other funding to $114,000. And then again, the total project estimate is $238,228. And then I just, I think I also, when I sent this on Tuesday to the chair and the admin assistant for CPC, I think I included that capital campaign letter again. It had been in the initial packet, committing up to $20,000. I think they had said for preliminary work, but it's really the securing an architect, preliminary design work, the immediate remediation, which was we were going to rent a crane and put up a tarp, but we haven't had to do that. And then I added in for contingency. And at the Board of Trustee meeting last night, I said you committed $20,000, so I adjusted and said it might be used for contingency. I also let, because 3 of the capital campaign members are also on the Board of Library Trustees. I also said that there had been a concern that if there was any money going back, that it would be distributed fairly, equitably, and that, I think that CPC money may be the last money spent.
Correct.
So we'll use up what we've committed elsewhere before we get the money from you. And then that's just budgeting of other funds. It's reflected again. I changed that total from $13,000 to $20,000 request. And those are the changes.
Okay.
You also added, maybe it was there before, but I don't remember seeing it, about the ongoing maintenance. Because I know that came up when we were meeting last time. So I think that's great that you've put that in here. And
that was in the original proposal. I didn't add
Okay,
anything
I
else
just
to the
didn't see
narrative except for what's highlighted.
your proposal
I have
was
been thinking
very
of it.
long. I didn't get to read all of it.
Fair enough. It's here. The architect is going to recommend a 5-year maintenance program, but we don't have an estimate for what that will cost at this time. I would expect at least $1,200 a year for contracted regular inspections, and possibly for repair and preservation and painting another couple grand. Do I call on Colleen or does the chair? Go ahead, Colleen.
Is that okay, John? Can you?
No, because I can't see.
No.
You're
Oh,
disappeared.
Colleen has her hand up.
I can't
Yes.
see.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, you-
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
We can't see your
No.
hand up, so just
No problem.
because.
So my question is, with the adjustment for the capital campaign, why did the whole project cost go up 7,000 rather than reduce the amount of the CPA request 7,000?
Because there needs to be contingency, and there was no placeholder for contingency. So things do sometimes go over budget, and I wanted to have that placeholder for in case it goes over budget. I wasn't asked to reduce the request. I was asked to account for the $20,000 for the capital campaign. So that's how I adjusted it. I also said that with my initial request, with what the Board of Trustees and capital campaign have committed, it's really only about a $39,000 gap that I absolutely need to have funded so I can get the rest, the Mass Historic Commission grant, committed. But what I've done is ask for a 3-way split between the Board of Library Trustees, the Capital Preservation Committee, and this project grant. So any funding between the $39,000 delta and $74,000 request will be satisfactory, because I'm aware that you have other projects to fund. So I'm trying to leave plenty of leeway for you to do sort of appropriate funding. But I wasn't asked to reduce the request. I was asked to account for the capital campaign commitment, and that's what I did in the application.
Paul.
As we can't run out of money and not finish this project.
So
I guess that's interesting, because the last time you applied, you didn't seem that concerned about running out of money. And now that we've asked to account for that additional 7,000, it has to be a contingency, which I find, I guess, I mean, it's good to have a contingency on any project, obviously, especially with the cost of things being in flux the last few years. I just wasn't expecting it to be accounted for that way. I thought it would just be the whole capital campaign contribution rather than its own separate line item.
It was its own separate line item before.
No, I get that, but
preliminary.
that the 7,000 would be its own separate rather than, splitting it 13,000 and 7,000. That it would all be a $20,000 contribution.
Sure. Okay.
So how does that work for CPA turnbacks? That whole 7,000 would have to get spent prior to CPA money being utilized, correct?
I don't have the answer to that question.
Are you,
I don't know about turnbacks.
I don't know who
I'm
Colleen
sorry.
was posing
I don't know
to.
who were you addressing?
So the last meeting we had, it was explained that CPA money is the last money spent and that any turnback would come to us rather than say the capital campaign. But if they're calling it a contingency, to me, that seems like they would want to spend the CPA money first and then dip into that 7,000 after. And I'm just clarifying that that 7,000 will be spent prior to the CPA funds being completely utilized.
I'll be paying the bills, so that 7,000 will get spent before ours. This didn't happen with the school project because they just spent all the money and no one at CPC even was authorized paying it. That's not gonna happen. We have a new accountant, they didn't know, so now they know. All the bills have to be approved by CPC. They cannot just pay the bills on their own. So if they've guaranteed that that their contribution is gonna be $20,000, it does not matter what line you put it on, that will be spent before the CPC dollars are spent. That those, because Paul is very familiar with this, that he had to spend down all these accounts doing the townhouse. And this is a lot easier math than the townhouse, but when we have 3 pots of money here,
Right.
bet you wanted to comment?
Well, I was just ask you, what do you have for contingency now? So usually a contingency is based off a percentage of the construction cost, and it's carried as a separate line item, and so
Yeah.
I don't see that here. So
There wasn't any. The architect's estimate did not include any contingency, but I think the original estimate had a price like per hour for their oversight of the work for each phase, preliminary and initial and final. And when Capital Campaign agreed to commit the $20,000, all I had at that time was an estimate for the preliminary work for $13,000 to investigate, to rent a crane, to wrap the cupola. So I don't have an additional project cost to attribute $7,000 to. It doesn't slot into equipment or supplies or contractual or construction. So my solution was I will call it contingency and put it in other.
yeah, you really should have a separate contingency line item, and I would base it off a percentage of your construction costs, overall costs.
Sure.
That's usually how it's based, and 5-10%. 5% that's not being very generous
not
to
enough.
yourself. I would
No.
say 10% would be more appropriate, and sometimes you might even go above that. I know with the townhouse, with each progressive installment of that, we learned that you had to give a little bit more for contingency based on what we'd get back for bids.
Yeah, it also depends upon what you're doing. So if it's a known, like, you're putting in a light, everyone knows it's $10 to put in a light, or you can have it $10.05. But if you're doing, in this case, restoration work, and you're gonna discover things, you might wanna carry a little bit heavier contingency for unforeseen.
Can that be added as a category on this application? I mean, it should be a budget category, and it's not. If you happen to revise the form, that might be a good idea.
We've talked about it plenty of times on other projects.
Jim
and
Gallagher was always
asking him.
on from day one, what's a contingency? And then we would, if you ask us for $25,000, we would give you $28,000. We would add, because if you didn't include your contingency, we would do that. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that because most projects actually build in a contingency. But I think I'm writing that down right now because we do need to, even though we have redone this application, we need to update it a little bit more. And in addition to other, we need to add a contingency line item just because it won't let you forget about it. You may not need it, but you may not have thought about it, or it may not jump out as something that you really need to put some dollars behind.
Sure. I mean, I can add it to personnel and just say if we go over, it will likely be on. We need more architectural oversight, and change that $13,000 to a straight $20,000. But that doesn't change the.
But also, it's not like we're a town budget where you can only spend $144,000 on construction, and $7 on other, and 13 on personnel, that
Right.
if one gets bigger and one gets smaller, you're dealing with a total cost of 238. So however that gets sliced up as the project goes, you get to decide that. We're not as restrictive as a town budget is for personnel and versus non-personnel costs. Justin?
So my two thoughts is I was similar to calling in what I expected to come out of the last meeting, which is the total CPA funding request to go down and that to go up to 20. That said, especially with the conversation about the contingency, I don't have an issue with what it is with this with this presentation today. It's not really a big difference to me. It's not like we're talking about $200,000 or anything different. It's 7. So that's not a big deal. And the only other thing I also wanted to comment on from our conversation last month, well, begin this month, about I wanted to thank you, John, for emailing Stuart from the coalition.
Right.
And if I may to summarize very quickly what he did say in the email is, one of the very first line, the law does not require the CPC to determine the reason why a building needs work. And then he did say explicitly there is nothing in the CPA legislation that would prohibit using CPA funds for this project. And he did go into a more detailed email, which I very much appreciated, but I felt that was worth just calling out in this meeting as well.
Right. And I think that's, to put a bow on it, that's why all these buildings are this way, is because very few people have a maintenance budget for buildings, because it's not sexy, it's not glamorous, and it's easy to cut because let somebody else just deal with it 5 years or 10 years or 20 years from now. And so then it's your problem, because then it's not 5,000, it's 20,000 or 200,000. So
his reply aligns with what I was hoping the answer would be and what I sort of thought it was, but it was still the question I felt was worth asking. So I'm happy with it.
Well, that's what they're there for. So
right. They're very, very, very helpful and very responsive. He responded immediately, literally that day. So, any other questions of people I can't see?
I'll stop her sharing so that we can see if my button wants to work. Oh,
Okay, there you go. Justin, Eric. Okay. Nope. Okay. So, Roger, would you like to add anything? Beth, anything else? Otherwise, you can stay on because we'll discuss this and then vote, so you can know where things stand.
I had one question actually. So you mentioned, I didn't get the exact amount, but roughly a $39,000 figure, Beth, as being your gap that you, at a minimum, you need to fill. So what is the overall actual project cost?
Sure. So the architect's quote is 228,000. Wait, I might need to open it again. 228?
It's on that page.
218,228.
Okay.
Right. So when I wrote the Mass Historic Commission grant, I thought they'll probably fund, I hope, 50%. So I went to the Board of Trustees and asked if we could fund half from state aid if we got the matching half from Mass Historic Commission. But I either didn't read the fine print or misunderstood that Mass Historic Commission doesn't cover personnel, which they consider architects' personnel. And they don't cover contingency. So out of my $109,114 request, they couldn't even fund the whole thing. So they offered $70,000 in grant funding. So the Board of Trustees said they'd give $114,000. Mass Historic said they would give $70,000, and that left a gap of almost $40,000. But my feeling was if there was CPA money available, it seemed that as this is a town building, it would make sense to do a three-way split and not completely decimate the state aid account. We do get money every year, but we have many other needs because we have had to put money into personnel and cut things like programming and marketing. And I'm now going to the board every month with requests to pay for things out of state aid because the budget, I didn't get the 10% increase that I needed. I could only sustain 6.6% because other departments have needs. Very fair. But we can't spend all of the state aid money down and then not have money to cover other expenses, including unexpected expenses for maintenance on new items that we had no idea we had to pay for. For example, we just got a $750 bill that we need to have the track for the partition that divides meeting room A and B in half. inspected and lubricated annually. That wasn't budgeted for a year and a half ago. So I didn't want to drain down the state aid money. So I said, well, maybe what I can do is propose that CPC pay a third, that the Board of Trustees will only then have to pay a third and have some more reserves left. And the Mass Historic contribution would be $70,000. And then so we could apply for that grant. Capital Campaign committed to $20,000. So that's how I arrived at the funding. So the bottom line, though, is the trustees do have $109,000 and $114 in state aid that they can pay that much money. And then we'll have to limp along and make sure that, state aid money continues to come in every year. It just didn't want to decimate that account. So they asked for a three-way split instead. So again, any number between about $40,000 and $74,000 will allow this project to proceed.
So, and looking at that 218,220, if I heard you correctly, 15% of that would be 33,000. So that's not completely accounted for in here. I mean, the $20,000 that you're talking about being committed is not only for contingency. There's securing an architect, preliminary design work, immediate remediation, ARP if needed. So,
and that's outside of the total project cost.
Say that again?
That was outside of the total. So the total project estimate was after we secured the architect. So that's, yeah. So you have $13,000 for the securing the architect and renting a crane and securing the cupola, and then the $20,000 for Capital Campaign. Maybe that's where you're coming up with the 33.
I'm using your overall cost that you said for the construction, and taking
218,000.
Yeah, I'm taking. Well, I rounded up to 220,000, and then I took 15% of that, and that's $33,000. So, would we need to divide that number then by 2 and apply half to us and half to your other funding source?
For what purpose? I'm not understanding what you're asking. I'm so sorry.
To provide you contingency fees in case you run into an issue and it costs you more than what you originally estimated, so that you have funding there available.
I think at that point I would go back to Capital Campaign and Board of Trustees and possibly Town of Grafton emergency maintenance funding, and not come back. I wouldn't account for it. No.
We only meet twice a year, and any funding that we do has to be approved at town meeting. So that would really hamper you if you're in the middle of a project, you need more money. You couldn't really get that through that whole process in time. It makes a lot more sense to have contingency funding available in the event you need it. If you don't need it, then you turn it back.
So again, I asked for 7,000. There's just so many numbers, right? So the 13,000 preliminary estimate includes things that we don't have to do. So we
I don't want you to go down this tangent because I'm not talking about that funding source. You have another funding source for that you're splitting it equally with us. What is that source again? Not the Capital Campaign, but what's your other funding source?
It's the state aid account that the Board of Library Trustees manages.
So if the state aid account is splitting it right now, how you've got it presented, it's splitting it equally between us and them, right?
Yes.
Would they split the $33,000 for the contingency fee? So we would up ours by, I don't know, roughly 16,500.
This might be where Roger can jump in, because I do not want to speak for the board, but what I can say is the board has agreed to pay up to $109,114. In my proposal to you, I said, let's let the board only contribute $74,114. So there's still additional money to go back to the Board of Library Trustees or state aid if we need it. But my point is that I don't want to risk decimating that state aid account if there is other money available, which is why I did a three-way split.
But that's $30,000 right there that you have in contingencies that you can go back to the ask for it if you need to. So it's just not on the application, but you have a contingency, just not documenting it.
I documented it in the narrative, not in the budget, because that was not the request.
Usually it's in the budget, though, I would say, so that we can all see the numbers.
But on this form, it doesn't have a place for it. That's
Yeah,
the
Well,
problem.
made that $7,000 a place for it and wrote contingency. So if she wanted to, she could have. It sounds like she just didn't want to have to if she didn't have, like, that's what a contingency is for, right? You don't want to spend it. I get it. It's a contingency.
Totally. And, you know, what we have traditionally done is to bump up the ask to account for some contingencies for you. You do have a funding source for some of it, but you've just said you really don't want to have to go to it for all of it. But so I think it makes sense to factor in some
I
percentage.
think what Paul is asking you is, do you want to ask for an extra $20,000, $15,000?
Yeah.
To
And
us.
I'm saying no, because the board did already commit it, and my sense is that not everybody on this committee is on board with committing the full amount. So again, I would personally be very happy with anywhere between 40,000 and 74,114.
But also in Paul's defense, we want to make sure you have enough money to do your project. Because like you said, you don't want to get 2/3 of the way through and there's a whole nother issue that really wasn't identified, that if you got that extra $20,000 or $15,000, that could at least get you over the hump, that it would help you finish the project. You wouldn't have to decimate the other resources, but you might have to use them as well. We're trying to protect this is our investment. We're trying to hedge our bet. That's all he's saying. And that if you don't need it, you don't spend it. And we're real good about not letting you spend it.
That's fine.
Sure. I will say that I also have apprehension about going to town meeting, having just completed a $16.6 million project, to ask for any amount of money for the public to vote on.
get you.
So I'm trying to keep it very reasonable.
Yeah, and she would have to use
And to be
that
fair.
other source anyways first. So it would really be
Right,
for
Justin,
amounts
go for it.
beyond.
Justin and then
So-
Sandy.
So
So
you know, I
So
just
I-
did the, you know, I just did the math out for what that actual 15% is on the exact 218.
Yep.
That's 32,734. So well, and like 20 cents or something. But the half would be 16,367. I think knowing that there's a contingency built into the proposal would actually make me happier, and I think that'd be knowing that there won't be yet another ask elsewhere to support getting this done is usually a good helper for getting a project through at town meeting from my experience. So I would support an additional funding of 16,000 whatever this is toward this project if, to make that contingency up.
So I have a quick question. You said that the trustees voted to, they've committed up to $109,000. Would they commit up to that much if it would decimate them? Because to me, that's $35,000 built in already that they're comfortable committing to.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're decimating anybody. I think you have your contingency. It's just being documented differently. And the trustees, you wouldn't have to go to town meeting for. You could go get that, and they've committed it to you. We just documented it differently on the application, but you have your $35,000 committed to you already. You don't need any more. And that's why I think you're hesitant to ask for it.
yeah. Again, this is unique in this last 6 months that I'm bringing multiple bills every month to the Board of Trustees and saying, guess what? We need to cover this too. Guess what? I need a new computer. We have this new bill. The Xerox lease, we thought we'd taken money from printing, but since COVID, people aren't printing and faxing like they used to. So we're not generating money. So now we have to cover the Xerox lease out of another budget. We didn't get everything we asked for programming. So we've got to supplement that. We don't have enough for travel, so we're supplementing that. There's zero marketing. So there's more bills that the trustees are now paying out of state aid than they ever have. So I am concerned about the spending, and Roger can certainly jump in.
Yeah,
Sandy first, and then Roger.
So just, you said that you got an estimate from the architect. The architect didn't have a line item for contingency. My question to them is that typically when you're doing an estimate early on, you don't have a full knowledge of everything. You do it very conservatively. So even though there might not be a line item that says contingency, there's probably some fluff in that number just on how you typically estimate a project like this. The second thing is we're all talking about this number created by this architect and not having all the details, that you won't know if this architect is even close until you go out to bid.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the bidding, climate right now, you know, when are you gonna bid? You know, you need to think about your timing of bidding, and then you wanna make sure that you're bidding at a time when you're gonna have good bids. And I don't think anyone here can predict what's gonna happen either this fall or if it's not till the next spring. You may find out that you're $50,000 under or $75,000 over. Can't tell you. It's hard to predict. So I don't know, talking about adding or not adding 10,000 at this point is gonna get you a whole lot.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what the architect did. So,
Are we thinking there's any revisions that need to be done to this again? Did I hear you correctly?
No, she did it. That's what this is.
Okay.
Those are the-
I thought I heard you say there was another one.
No, that's it.
The only thing, it doesn't really make it clear where the other funding is coming from. I know it's coming from the trustees and the capital campaign, but it'd be nice if it was more clearly referenced in here somewhere.
The budget other funds.
Budget
underneath
other funds, yeah.
the second table on there.
It's in, where the yellow is.
It's right, it's down here under budget
So-
other funds. I mean,
so
I
the
can put in
Board
an
of Li-
account number
it's
for
our own-
these, but
It's Grafton's Board of Library Trustees that is doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, it's a town, account. But that
And
money
that
goes-
was the state aid you're referencing. That's the
Yeah.
74,000 state aid, but you have committed up to 109 in state aid. It's just not shown on this number here. So to
Right,
me,
it
I
is
feel very
down.
comfortable with a contingency that's baked in, even though it's not very readily seen here. We've teased out that there is a $35,000 contingency.
Yes.
Well, that money would have to be used first anyway, so if, you know, if you, the way you've split it out, like she's saying, you definitely have a contingency already built in. If that's enough, it's anyone's guess at this point. I totally agree with you,
that's the
Sandy.
problem. Yeah.
And if you're not gonna do the work this fall, and I would suggest to you, it'll be hard for you to get bids out and go through that whole process in time for anyone to do work before snow flies. The best time to bid is early winter, after the
Right,
holiday.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the plan, yeah.
Totally agree.
The work has to be completed by June 30th. So the plan is to bid early winter and start as soon as we can in the spring and
Yep.
finish on time.
Good plan.
And just to put a pin on, at least from my end, is that, you know, I would be more comfortable with having us, you know, officially having a, you know, higher amount for the contingency. But that said, you know, it's your call in the end, and if you don't want to add more, then that's what we'll vote on and what we'll do.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns from anyone? Roger, sorry, I forgot about you.
Yeah, I'm easily forgotten. It's late at
No,
night,
you're
right?
not. No, you're not.
No, I just wanted to say is, I mean, just as one member of the Board of Trustees and also as its chair, you know, in this new role, is I'm becoming more familiar with all of this. Okay, this is one area that I can say as one member that I will certainly commit to that would not fall off certainly my radar regarding the maintenance of this, and that. You know, a stitch in time saves nine. I'm very well aware that there's a reason for that expression, and that I would certainly be. I can only speak for myself. One person who would be pretty vigilant at making sure that that maintenance schedule is maintained, and so that we don't have to come back, you know, and say, "Oops, guess what? You know, we're back again." However many years down the road. So, you know, it's a great building. To Beth's point, I know that I just hope that whatever discussion occurs at town meeting, that people understand that notwithstanding the cost of the new library, this still is part of the older structure, and that it's not like we're coming back and saying we need more money for the new library project. It's just a funky situation that it is one building, but two distinct architectural features between the old section and the new section. And I would hate to see this historic gem of a building, especially that feature, okay, be compromised in any way. And so I'm just hoping that the CPC offers support and that we'll do our best in front of town meeting to then put forward our own thoughts as to why the town meeting should support this. And so, I'm crossing my fingers in that respect. So I really appreciate the CPC's due diligence in really having reviewed this very extensive application. And I greatly appreciate any funding that you can commit to, which I think the vote will be tonight. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Lisa or Kristen or Eric, we haven't forgotten about you. Just want to make sure you weren't forgotten. If I didn't see, if you had a question or a comment. If not, do I have a motion? Or this is all done, but we only have one item, so we don't have any others to go to. So we'll go ahead, have our discussion, and then vote.
So motion to move on this and then discuss? I'll make that motion. A motion we make approval of the request for $74,114 to the Grafton Library for restoration of the cupola.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Paul and Justin. And I'll do it for you. She's on her game. She's all over it. And from the last meeting, Beth didn't quite know and didn't say anything, but I told her to speak up. So if we start talking over each other, or she can't hear, or she can't identify who's talking, especially now that, not you, Beth, it's not library Beth, CPC Beth, that for her to take minutes or to know who's making motions, who's seconding the motion, for her to just interrupt me and say, please slow down. I can't follow, I can't track. So just so you guys are aware that she may have to throw something at me. I will try to help her out as much as I can. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? And I will use my paper that I will read better this time, Justin. I'll start with you. How's that? Justin?
Aye.
I had one discussion item, sorry.
Throw something at me, Colleen.
So this happens every town meeting with a CPA project. Beth, you'll be prepared to present and defend this project at town meeting, correct?
I will be there, yes.
Fantastic.
Right, that's just so understanding for everybody that's new. These aren't our projects; they're the proponents' projects. We can go and explain why we voted the way why we support it, but it's up to the proponent to answer direct questions for the most part. We could answer technical questions, but they have to have the information because they're the ones. This is their project. We're just approving it to go to town meeting for town meeting then to vote on it. So, any other questions? So back to our roll call. So Justin,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
There he is. He popped up. Lisa,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Sandy.
Yes.
I declare the motion carried unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We
Really
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
That was
Great question.
a lot of work in your application. I appreciate all the information that you did include. So you
Thanks
guys
so much. Have a great night.
are free to
Have
go
a good
back to
evening.
your normal activities.
I would stay. I have to go have dinner. Good night.
Yes, good night. Let's see. To go back to the agenda, For the treasurer's report, Ken said it's the same report as we had last time. He, I think we didn't have the, corrected one. This time you do have the corrected one printed. Nothing has changed. It does include, which is a good thing. We didn't change the dollar amount because it has the dollar amount that, they requested for the library project. I don't know what color that is. Is that blue?
It's blue at the top, yes.
Blue. That's $74,114. And
Oh, the slate gray bluish color myself.
That works.
Close enough.
Blue's okay.
and the funds that will be used for this project are the fiscal year 2024 budgeted reserve. And when we get to it, that the warrant article is prepared to reflect that. Paul, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
To the treasurer's report?
Right. That,
There was no change. The only thing that Ken wanted to make sure is that we had the funding for the cupola taken from the fiscal year 24 budgeted reserve. And I believe that's what we've got in the wording here.
Yeah.
That's what I saw written in the treasurer's report as well. So I think we're good.
All right. I move that we approve the treasurer's report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Paul,
Aye.
Ken, not here. Colleen,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Justin,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Sandy.
Aye.
I declare the motion carried. Beth, CPC Beth is still working on the minutes. So we will have those at the next meeting. We just had the proposal. We have one article, which everybody has a copy of the warrant article. This is our standard language that literally I pulled off of a previous warrant article. To see if the town will vote to appropriate $74,114 from the fiscal year 2024 budgeted reserve to restore and preserve the Grafton Public Library cupola, with such funds to be expended by June 30th, 2025, unless the Community Preservation Committee by majority vote extends the deadline or take any other action relative thereto.
I move that we put that forward as read for a town meeting.
Do I have a motion
Second.
and a second? Any discussion? And this will be massaged by the town
Treasurer and
council,
accountant, yeah.
you know, so everybody's gonna look at it. It's pretty much literally what gets done every year, so, but if there's any little thing wrong, they will correct it, but it's the dollar amount and the funding source that are the critical pieces that we approve.
Yes.
So, no discussion. Paul. We're voting.
Aye.
And it's on here. Colleen,
Aye.
Eric, Eric.
Sorry, the mute just
Sorry.
keeps disappearing from me. Aye.
No, it's like we're having lots of problems on technology. Not a problem. Justin,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
and Sandy.
Aye.
Declare the motion carried. So that was the most important piece of business tonight, was getting that done.
It's kind of a bunch of words. Yes, I fill it in, so I can just keep changing.
The project updates. Eric, you're up. Do you have any affordable housing trust update information for us?
I do not this meeting, no.
Okay.
I have not been able to attend the last couple.
Okay.
Do you know at all what's going on with 25 Worcester Street? I think that, I imagine that the RFP must be done with by that.
Just, I would like to just to declare that or make it clear that we were asked, as the company that I work for and own part of, was asked to be on a team for going after that RFP. So I'm just going to recuse myself from any discussion,
Okay,
just to avoid any kind of potential conflict.
okay. Thank
Since
you.
that's not an actual CPA funded project, do we need to?
If potentially is, because they have $1,800,000 of our money that potentially could be used to buy down units in that building. So I think you're being
I'm being
wise
being
and
a little bit
cautious.
overly cautious, but just based on our company policy with people on different boards, is we tend to be overly cautious when there's any hint of any potential conflict. And so
You're an outlier.
it's I only and really the only conversation I had internally when someone asked me about it, I said, "Don't ask me about it anymore," and said, "Go do what you need to do. Thank you for letting me know."
So, oh,
Do we know
Eric
anything?
didn't get the chance to talk.
Yeah, sorry, my kids have COVID and are being difficult, but
Oh.
the RFP was granted, so that is where it's at. You can probably hear my son in the background. I cannot recall the name of the company right now, but I'm happy to email it after.
Is it no longer GSX?
They weren't GSX.
At 25 Worcester,
Yeah,
Oh,
they weren't-
sorry.
weren't
they were
GSX.
never involved there.
Wrong.
So when you say granted, you mean the contract was awarded to somebody?
The RFP, yeah, we granted it to a company that believe they're a nonprofit. Don't quote me on that. Out of Worcester,
Okay.
and they've done a lot of projects in the area.
What about whatever Upton Street, 17 Worcester Street, the old DPW? Do you know where that process is? Because it is back to GSX, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
If you come back to me at the end of the meeting, I can probably give more info. I unfortunately have to go on mute right now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, on the Upton Street thing, I think 2 planning board meetings ago, they met with us and gave a preliminary kind of a outline. I think it was 2 meetings ago, maybe 3. And then I know you spoke to us at my planning board last meeting,
Right.
About barn, but I haven't heard anything more since that yet.
And I believe Affordable Housing Trust met with GSX about the property last month. I believe there was a meeting where they discussed it.
Okay. Lisa, you're not getting off easily. Do you know? I don't know, because I really don't know. Are you brand new to that housing authority, or were you already on?
No, I'm halfway through my second term, my
Okay,
second 5-year
So then
term.
I can ask. I didn't know if you were just literally jumping in.
No,
Jack. So where does that program to help with rental assistance, has that, because I know it seems like at the last meeting or 2 ago, Jack said that they were going to start working with the director and trying to formulate policy and how to make this all work. Do you know, are we getting closer and closer?
yeah, I think a phone call between maybe you and Ken and Amanda, who's the director over there, would be prudent. She discussed with the lawyers about opening an account there, but I don't think it's that easy. I mean, the premise is excellent for $10,000, and she puts it down to help people acquire acquire an apartment there, but getting the point to getting an account. I don't know if it's
So it won't, I don't know that it'll be, I mean, there is an account because the town accountant set up an account. So what you would do
Okay.
is, and you said her name is Amanda?
Yep,
Your director.
Amanda Brady,
And
and I can give you. I'll give you her. I'll email you her phone number.
is that she will basically every month or every week or however she needs to do it, send an invoice. And
Okay.
that way, but basically she'll send it to you because you're the rep for that project. And then you'll sign off on it saying, I mean, it won't have anybody's name. It'll just say rental assistance for January 2024, $1,500. And you'll,
Okay.
however you, with your conversations with her, you know that that's what it was. This, it helped one person, 3 people, whatever you need to gather, what kind of information. Then you'll send it to me and say this is approved to pay. So then I'll submit it. Again, talk about bureaucracy to Beth. But this way we're watching our money. We watch it.
Yep. All right. That's great.
So that all she has to do is literally send us a bill. She
Okay.
doesn't have to worry about account anything. That's all on Beth has to worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
Lucky CPC Beth.
She's got a new name, CPC Beth.
But she also goes by Beth Ann. But she said, but not at work, right?
It depends.
Depends. Okay.
Depends on her mood.
Okay. So that's affordable housing. Any updates on the archival records project?
I tried to reach out to Candy, and she's on vacation. So I sent her an email, but I haven't heard back.
Okay. I actually went to the cemetery and inspected the little box that Rich had made.
Oh yeah,
It's still there.
I've walked by it. Yeah.
It's keep it doing its job, but I still need to find somebody to do a more permanent solution to that problem. So, but it was meant to be a temporary measure, and it's still holding up. Grafton Common restoration.
So I am still trying to finish up with Jam, which is the contractor on the project. We're essentially all done. The only loose end was in the electrical box. There's a fuse box within it, and there are a few fuses that aren't labeled. I don't know if they're connected to anything or not, so we're just asking for clarity on that piece. And then there'll be a need for a change order. We had to carve a groove. I think I went over this.
Right,
Yeah, we had to carve a groove into the conduit. So that there was a fee for that, and then we wanted to have the light that's inside the bandstand turn on and off with dusk and dawn. So we had that done as well. So we will need to do a change order for that, and I'm trying to coordinate that with closing out the project contract with them. And we're also working on signage. So the electrical junction box, it did get damaged. I don't know exactly how it happened, but it's been pitted. It's not like little pebbles have hit it, and it's causing some rust to occur. Because normally you wouldn't think that brushed aluminum would rust, but when you go up and ping it, that finish wears off, and then it's subject to rust. So we want to get that cleaned up so it won't rust further, but then we want to do a wrap over it. So there'd be a photograph, a historic photograph on one side. We actually found a photo, and when I say we, I'm talking about the Historic District Commission. We found a photo that's actually of the entrance, one of the entrances of the common, and you can see the original archways in it, and there's a woman dressed in, she's kind of dressed like the Statue of Liberty, and she's got something in her hand she's holding up, and then there's a bunch of kids. There was a project in town to build birdhouses, so they all have their birdhouses in there, and there's the teachers and some other dignitaries in the picture, and it's 4th of July time, so she's wrapped in a flag. It's a really cool picture, and the resolution on it's excellent, so we think that blowing it up onto this wrap on one side, and then on the other side, the side that if you're facing it, the inn is behind you, to have a historic picture of the inn there. So you would see the photo of what it looked like back in the late 1800s, and then you'd have the existing structure right in the background. So we wanted to do that, and then we also want to put a project sign in to acknowledge that funds came from CPA, and give a little history, just a very small smidgen, maybe a paragraph of history on it, and it would be mounted on a bronze plaque on a stone at a location within the common yet to be determined. So we have those two things to finish up, and then there's one issue that we're still trying to finalize. We did get a don't want to call it a complaint, but we got input from a accessibility advocate about two things. One was the transition at the top of the elevated walkway where it meets the bandstand. It was slightly out of code. Code requires that over its width that it be within a half inch either way, and it was a quarter inch, excuse me, and it was actually at a half inch. So we had the contractor level that. That's all set. But the other one is a question as to whether or not we need to have actual steps with handrails at the front entrance to the bandstand. It's not required by building code. You'd have to have 4 or more risers before that would be required. But it's not clear from looking at 521 CMR, which is the part that applies to the accessibility, whether or not they might require it. It is very vague. So we've written a letter to the executive director of the AAB and asked for his insight on it. And we're waiting to hear back.
So we're just waiting.
We're waiting to hear back. So those are the things that we have left to wrap up. And we're still at about, right now we're running about 88,000 that we have left in project funding.
Good job. Thank you. Kristen, any updates on the ADA? And you can also tell us about you have a new director for the recreation, right?
Yes, but at our last meeting earlier this month, he had not started yet. So I have not officially met him. So I don't have anything to report on that. And the staff wasn't really able to update me on those projects.
Okay.
So I will give you an update at the next meeting. But, when Jen left a couple months ago, her indication to me was that there was only a couple items that had to be finished with the contractors she was having issues with, and that the town was going to do the remainder. So I'll just have to get an update if that's closed or not.
Kristen, I actually had a question for you. The Historic District Commission, that boulders with the plaque on it that we were talking about, we were told that if we could find our own boulder, that it would be a lot less expensive. And I know that they had to take down part of that beautiful stone wall to provide an entrance to 95 North Street. And so
Okay.
my thought is that there are some big stones there. And I didn't know who to talk to about it. Well, to talk about moving, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys would be okay with us, going out there, first of all, and looking for a stone, but if we find one, to take it and bring it up to the common.
Okay,
assuming
I
it's
can
not
send a
in it.
message over, letting them know that that's something you're interested in.
Okay. Who would you send that to?
The director,
Okay. Who is the new director? I'm sorry.
Adam Lapointe, is
Adam.
that right?
Okay. Thank you.
I think that's his name.
Okay. Yeah, I
Mary
didn't have
is
a
the
name or
admin.
an email, so I figured I'd ask you.
If you don't get one through like town-owned land, one option that might be, I might suggest is maybe reaching out to the planning department and because there's a few projects that I know are going to be doing some blasting or already planning to do blasting.
Yeah.
So like if there's something that ends up being a big boulder that developer doesn't have to send off somewhere, that might be something they're amenable to dropping off on a town-owned piece of.
Thank you. That's a great offer. Thank you.
Another option, which would involve another
Subdivision
group, is Fisherville Mill
Institute
site.
in the-
They
Yeah,
save
that's what I was
all
thinking of.
kinds of granite from
hear
the
the
mill
ramp
that are
all the
just
time.
piled up there.
Yeah.
And that might be a neat, if it's the appropriate
Yeah.
size and I would think, cause there was a good relationship with the town and I can't remember his name now, but he owns the mill in Whitensville too.
Gene Burnett.
Yep, so he may gladly
Should be able to
donate
find
that.
A big rock in Grafton something.
Yes, I'm sure. Then we got to
Except
move
for
it. That's
Grafton
the next
is the
thing.
place
Then we
that's-
need the DPW.
Was it mini rocks or small rocks? That's what Hassan-Metsat means. Place of mini rocks or
Small stones. Small stones. Yep. Place of small stones.
How about the UUSGU Universal X?
I reached out to Ted. They haven't closed out the project yet. I asked for an update to, because they've got to be pretty close to wrapping up the design piece of it. I know they're going out for funding, or trying to figure out funding for the next phase. So he didn't get back to me before the meeting, but
Okay,
I did pose the
and I
question.
skipped over Lions Club. That they're waiting on, they're getting a sign made. So that's where they are with that. They're pretty much almost finished. South Grafton Playground. Please tell me it's finished.
I'm imagining it is. I have not researched Dr. Cummings since the last time he talked to me, where he said it was likely he expected to be done by school start. But I know these are the few weeks that he's really busy, so I didn't bother to bother him. But
Okay, because
I went down there over the weekend and it was not finished. It was still pretty heavily roped off with a lot of stuff that needed to be put back, the mulch put back, and finishing touches.
yeah,
Did-
school
is the
starts Monday.
rubberized surface down.
I did not when I went there this weekend. It was not, but it's Thursday, so a lot could have happened between Monday and
Yeah.
Thursday.
Okay, because I don't know if it was today or tomorrow. They're blocking off the road for paving. Because
Yep.
they said school was going to be closed at noon, and I couldn't tell if it meant today or tomorrow. So trucks can't get in if the road's closed.
Yep.
Okay, 95 North Street. Kristen, any new information on that project?
No, Sandy, do you have any information on that you could share?
Nothing really on an update other than that the design is pretty much wrapped up based on where we are with invoices and so forth, so, but not 100% yet.
Okay, thank you.
I'll check with Leah.
And Ken's not here for the Robinson property, but that the baseline report will be done in-house through the land trust. So that's just a matter of just whenever they get to that right point that they will finish that. So
Motion to adjourn.
Before we do that, can I just get a quick rundown of our future meeting dates?
our meetings are the fourth Thursday. We've had the problem this summer of July.
Except
Okay.
we don't in December, right? In
We
2,
don't
3.
meet the last week of November.
September
or December.
28th,
December, yeah, November. December. You're right.
October 26th, November 2nd, and December 7th.
Awesome. Thank you. Very helpful.
It's just November, December are the only 2 months that because of
The holidays.
Thanksgiving and Christmas that we just bump it up.
Yeah.
So it's
Perfect.
November 2nd and December. If anyone would like, I live by my Outlook calendar, so I will be making Outlook appointments, and if anyone wants me to send them an invite, just so you have it on your calendar,
It's on there.
I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure that, yeah, if I don't have it in my Outlook calendar, I
I
don't
will
go.
put that because I used to when I first started. I did a whole year's. Joanne just gets the room and did all that
Right.
and then it's invisible to you. But I sent out a piece of paper so that you guys could put it on your bulletin board or throw it away. But I will do that for 2025 for the meetings because that's easy enough to do.
Right.
Okay.
John,
Yes, ma'am.
before we adjourn, could you just send me an email of exactly what you want on that invoice from housing so there's no misunderstanding and we don't have to go back and do it twice?
The one thing that we'll have to do, they'll have to fill out an I-9 or whatever to get paid. They'll have to do paperwork with the accounting office to be a vendor. And so you have to have a tax ID number or, whatever your,
Aren't they a town department? Why would
no, it's
It's state.
it's state?
State.
Okay.
So they'll have their own TIN and that they need that. And then whoever,
Okay.
that kind of stuff. But I will ask Mary to,
Yeah, that gets them in the accounting system. They need to do it first.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Motion
Do we have to do a roll call? To adjourn?
Yep. No
Second.
discussion though.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
No discussion. Paul,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Eric.
He
Justin,
dropped off, yeah.
Here, yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
and Sandy.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:06.